Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? More muscular, more masculine, more perfect. This is the loneliness.
If you looked like the perfect looking guys in pornography, you'd be loved. You wouldn't feel alone. You're lonely because you don't look like the guys in videos. It's your fault. You have no one to blame but yourself. No amount of beauty can protect us from loneliness.
Hey friends, welcome to The Fan. I'm Pieter Valk, a licensed counselor, author, and founder of Equip. I help churches love LGBT plus people better, and I walk alongside Christians who want to follow Jesus with their sexuality and identity. This clip is from a men's conference in Utah where I shared about something many of us wrestle with, body shame, especially in the gay community. But what's beneath that shame? The deeper wound, I think, is loneliness. We think that if we're attractive enough or fit enough or desirable enough, we will finally feel loved, but what we're really longing for isn't to be beautiful, it's to be seen and known and not alone. No workout plan or diet can fix the ache of disconnection. And chasing beauty as a path to love will only keep us stuck, exhausted, ashamed, and still lonely. So if this video resonates with you, give it a like, subscribe for more content like this, and follow me on social media for ongoing conversations about faith, sexuality, and discipleship. Let's dive in.
Yeah, so gay men are twice as likely to struggle with body shame. Yet the shame keeps us from naming our pain and from tending to that wound. So today I want to explore why are gay men particularly susceptible to body shame, expose the lies that body shame is telling us, and then discover how we can defang those lies with self-awareness and with healthy connection. But first, why should you care what I have to say about this stuff? My name is Pieter Valk, as has been shared already. I'm a writer and speaker about vocational singleness and LGBT plus topics according to a traditional sexual ethic, and I've been published in places like Christianity Today and taught at over 65 churches, Christian universities, and campus ministries. I'm the founder and executive director of Equip, a premier consulting and training solution for churches aspiring to be places where gay people can thrive according to a traditional sexual ethic, and we've trained over 11,000 leaders. I'm a teacher and aspiring deacon in the Anglican Church in North America, particularly on topics of celibacy and sexuality. I'm the founding brother of the Nashville family of brothers, an ecumenically Christian brotherhood, building family for men called to vocational singleness. And then particularly relevant to today's conversation, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I mostly serve gay Christians seeking to steward their sexualities according to a traditional sexual ethic. Each of my jobs has to do with sexuality and finding belonging in the body of Christ. All this work matters to me, this topic matters to me because I'm a Christian, I'm gay, and I'm committed to traditional sexual ethics. So what do I mean when I say a traditional sexual ethic? Just to clarify, a belief that God's best for every Christian is either vocational singleness, so a lifetime vocation of abstinent singleness for the sake of doing kingdom work with undivided attention, or a lifetime vocation of opposite sex Christian marriage with an openness to raising children for the sake of the kingdom. Now, some of you may agree with that, some of you may disagree with that. We're not actually going to get into much sexual ethics today, but I just wanted to be transparent. And then I think another helpful disclaimer, I am an Anglican, so I really value ecumenical dialogue, and I'm super grateful to be a guest in your space. So, we may disagree about certain theological points, whether Jesus is God, whether Jesus was celibate, whether we'll all be celibate in heaven. But today, we're going to focus on where there's so much agreement, which is loving gay people as they discover the most faithful ways to honor God with their sexualities. That's what we're getting to today. And I saw a hand in the back. We're going to get to some discussion opportunities 3 different times in today's talk. So if you got some questions, I encourage you to kind of hold it till we get to them. But yeah, unless the hand was that I'm a little too loud.
Well, define vocational. That's a new term for me, vocational sexuality.
Yeah, so Vocational singleness, as I describe it, is a lifetime vocation of abstinent singleness for the sake of doing kingdom work with undivided attention. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like, actually, in a workshop that I'm offering tomorrow at the same time, but different place. I think it's upstairs. But yeah, we may get into more of that in today's conversation, but that's kind of where I'm personally coming from. So I also want to offer one other last disclaimer, which is that we're going to be talking about subclinical levels of body shame today, particularly in men, gay men. We're not going to be talking about clinical levels of eating disorders or related interventions. And also, if listening to this conversation is too heavy for you, there's no shame in stepping out at any point. So just want to make those things clear. So, and then final note, if you want to get a copy of my notes after this, you can go to the link at the bottom, equipyourcommunity.org/Northstar, and that'll give me an address to send them to. So yeah. And then one last reason you should care what I have to say. Body shame has been telling me a powerful lie for 20 years. Here's the lie. If you looked like the perfect-looking guys in pornography, you'd be loved. You wouldn't feel alone. And you're lonely because you don't look like the guys in videos. It's your fault. You have no one to blame but yourself. Those are at least the lies I heard. This first began for me when I became aware of my same-sex attractions in 6th grade, realized I was gay, swore I would never let anyone know that part of my story, but because I was ashamed and afraid others would find out and treat me poorly because of that. And all that led to a lot of loneliness. A lot of you guys can probably empathize. The family and church I grew up in rarely talked about gay people. It mostly only came up related to politics. When it did come up in church, it was a simple statement: God's against homosexuality. It was clear that gay was bad and good Christians weren't gay. That was the narrative I got. So I felt gross, disgusting because of my attractions. And I doubted I would ever be loved by my friends or my parents. So after I realized I was gay, I tried to change that part of me. Between the ages of 13 and 23, I prayed hundreds of prayers that God would make me straight. Spent about 100 plus hours in counseling with therapists who thought they could reduce my gayness. I spent 9 months at a Pray of the Gay Way ministry, but I'm still gay. So, although I'm a more well-adjusted gay now, so I'm more emotionally healthy than I was. So there was certainly some good that came out of all that. But yeah, I was also really afraid that people would find out. I was so afraid that I dropped out of theater in high school, just so people wouldn't suspect I was gay. So in middle school, I played the leading roles in both of our theater productions, but then in high school, I quickly realized that the same people in the theater club were also in the Gay Straight Alliance, so I could not risk anyone suspecting I was gay. So no more theater for Pieter. Maybe you can relate to that as well, I don't know. I think I'm most ashamed of the moments when my fear of being outed and discussed with my own sexuality turned to homophobia of hurting others. I'm haunted by this moment from high school cross country. There was a guy in our school who was the only guy at the time who was openly out. He was also on the cross country team. And this is probably the week or two after he had come out publicly. And as we lined up on the starting line for the race and started into our normal kind of partner stretching that we do before every race, one after another, guys told him, when he asked, would you partner stretch with me? They said, no, gross. I don't want to touch you and I don't want you touching me. And then he got to me and I sheepishly refused. I dished out the same pain that I had spent. Lots of tears, lots of prayers trying to soothe. So yeah, I was, missed those. Bloop. So I was ashamed, I was afraid, and I was alone. I thought there was no one else like me. I grew up being taught by TV and the culture around me that a pretty horrible stereotype of gay people that all gay people went to group sex parties, that they all had AIDS, that they were all addicted to drugs, and that none of them wanted anything to do with God. Based on that image, I didn't think I belonged among gay people. And then on the other side, all of the Christians that I knew were straight, or so I thought, and I was led to believe that in order to be a good Christian, you had to be straight. And then there was me, stuck in no man's land in the middle. I didn't belong anywhere. I was alone. Now, I give you all this story because I want to give you the background to where then these body shame lies showed up. In this isolation and loneliness, I yearned for some kind of connection, some place where I could share honestly about my story and about my pain. I wanted some kind of relief, some kind of escape. And like too many teens, I stumbled upon videos of strangers engaging in false intimacy. I stumbled on pornography, and it worked, at least for a season. I didn't feel as alone. I felt some relief. I felt some escape. But that self-soothing sinisterly taught my heart the lie that to be loved, I had to look like the perfect men in those videos to be enough. Every time my brain was flooded with chemicals watching perfect-looking people, connecting in what seemed like the most meaningful, satisfying ways, it was imprinted on my soul that that's what it took not to be alone. That's what you had to look like to be loved. That line from the lie before. If you looked like perfect-looking guys in pornography, you'd be loved. You wouldn't feel alone. So I felt alone. So when I felt alone, or when I saw people who appeared to be loved, or at least looked better than me, and I assumed that they were getting all of the love they wanted because they looked better than me, body shame quickly provided that next explanation. Well, it's because you don't look like the guys in videos. It's your fault. You have no one to blame but yourself. When I noticed a friend or a stranger shirtless at the lake or in the pool, strutting six-pack abs or muscular shoulders, or someone's biceps and veiny arms peeking from under a short-sleeved shirt, or a guy lifting his arms above his hands to stretch, revealing some of his stomach under his shirt, or a guy wearing tighter-fitting clothes, showing off his legs or his butt or his chest muscles. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw lonely and lumpy. And body shame quickly provided an explanation. If you looked like the perfect-looking guys, you'd be loved. You wouldn't feel alone. It's your fault. You have no one to blame but yourself. Tragically, body shame is alarmingly common among gay men. Multiple studies have shown that gay men are twice as likely to suffer from eating disorders and body shame as compared to straight men and women. Whereas, for example, lesbian women experience similar levels of eating disorders and body shame as compared to straight women. Further research has indicated that approximately 54% of LGBT adolescents have been diagnosed with full syndrome eating disorders during their lifetime, with an additional 21% suspecting that they've had an eating disorder at some point in their life. And then adult male sexual minorities have been found to have experienced significant disordered eating symptomology, including desires to be thin, binging, purging, and body dissatisfaction, which correlated with being overly concerned about body shape and size and level of femininity, regardless of sex assigned at birth. And all of this at much higher rates than in straight males. So why? Why are there these higher rates of body shame among men? And after this section, we're going to have a little bit of discussion about the why. Many straight women describe their body shame as an awareness that male desire is driven primarily by physical appearance. So the lie tells women that they must look a certain way to be loved, that they won't be loved if they don't look a certain way. And if they aren't getting love and they don't look that way, they have no one to blame but themselves. Yet women don't typically choose their love based primarily on physical attraction. It's more of a 50-50 mix between emotional desire and physical appearance. So this is not something that kind of comes naturally to women. This is not how they see people first. They are taught this awareness by advertisers hoping to profit from making women feel inadequate, and taught by straight men. In contrast, gay men know this intuitively because our desires are typically driven by physical appearance. Again, not always, just typically. So we both see men this way and expect gay men to see us this way, and this doubles the effect as compared to straight women. Now, to be clear, this is just one form that body shame takes, and body shame has many origins. And right, this shouldn't matter to me. I'm committed to celibacy, to vocational singleness. I'm not seeking or expecting romantic or sexual relationship with anyone. But when I feel lonely or feel any kind of lack, this powerful lie of body shame speaks. Here's the problem. No matter how perfect I look, I can't shake body shame. My own experience has been that no matter how skinny I get, or how much muscle I put on, or how perfect my haircut is, no matter what changes about my appearance, it's never been enough. I experience basically the same loneliness, the same not enoughness, and the same shame. And anecdotally, the same has been true for the gay men and straight women in my life who've shared with me about their body shame. Why? Well, because no amount of beauty can protect us from loneliness. No amount of beauty can protect us from loneliness. Take a closer look at the lies from earlier. If you looked like the perfect-looking guys in pornography, you'd be loved. You wouldn't feel alone. You're lonely because you don't look like the guys in videos. It's your fault. You have no one to blame but yourself. Do you notice that how the core need at play here isn't to be handsome or beautiful, or even to be desired? It's to not be alone. It's to be connected in healthy ways and believe we are enough. So we can't kick body shame by working out or dieting more, because those aren't addressing the real problem. It's a lie. It's a false solution that keeps us running in a hamster wheel. So I shared a little bit about my story with body shame and the lies it's told me. We talked about how common this is among gay men. We talked about why that might be and the problem of those lies. I want to have a little bit time of discussion and take a few minutes to consider these questions. You can either think privately on some of these questions I'm about to share, or you can chat with a person or two sitting next to you. I want to do that for like 6 minutes, and then I'll open it up for some of you guys to share with the whole group if you're willing to. So here's the questions I'd love for you to consider. What version of these lies of body shame have you heard in your life? Has that shame pushed you to make unhealthy decisions? Will you ever be handsome or beautiful enough to satisfy those lies? So take 5, 6, 7 minutes to reflect on this privately or with someone next to you, and then I'll call us back to kind of maybe have more of a group conversation for those of you who want to share. I'm also going to turn on some background music so that you don't worry about the person next to you hearing your conversation. Like in restaurants when they turn it on really loud. Anyway. So, all right, y'all go for it. Thank you guys so much. A number of you shared really vulnerable things. My hunch is that there's some people who don't feel safe sharing yet or didn't have a chance to share, but as they heard you share about things that were hard and maybe similar to theirs, they feel less alone. And that's a win. So I really appreciate those of you guys who are willing to share. And I also, one last comment before we keep going. There is this tricky balance between, we want to do good self-care by perhaps avoiding people or spaces where they do judge us like this, right? And a lot of those guys are brothers who were stuck in the same thing that we were 5 or 10 years ago. And so what does it look like to also maybe care for our brothers by helping them not see each other in this way? That's hard. I don't have instructions, a manual of how to do that, but a question to ponder later. Okay, another reminder, if you want my notes, you can go to that link and I'll send them to you afterwards. Okay, so let's talk about the solution, or at least some steps in the direction of something better. What I want to suggest is 3 things. That we expose the lie, that we tend to the real need by exposing the lie, that we mourn our unmet needs, and that we take practical steps to meet our intimacy needs in healthy ways. So let's start with that first one, exposing the lie. We need to name it when we see it in our lives. Naming it takes power away from it. It brings it into the light. It helps us examine, right? As I started to write out for myself what those sentences were that I kept on hearing in my head, it was a lot easier to point out why those sentences were actually lies. And then as I got in the habit of, I felt something like body shame, and I said, ooh, is it those sentences? Ooh, it is those sentences. I know how to push back against those sentences. That habit can become something that eventually becomes automatic. Pushing back against body shame can become something that's automatic. So, and it's really helpful to speak it out loud to other people, right? Like, God put us in bodies. We're going to be in bodies in the new heaven and new earth. Like, it matters that we're embodied. It's good for our souls to hear things spoken out loud that our souls need to hear. So sharing it with a trusted person can take some of the power away from it. And also invite more conversation about it. And then repeat the process. Like, each time we do this, it takes a little bit more power away from it. And you guys are already modeling that in sharing in this conversation, some about it. So I really, you guys have got courage. Number 2, mourn that we have unmet needs. Recognize that what we really need, what there's really a painful lack of, and then mourn it. I think we're all made for lifelong lived-in family with other believers. But for a variety of reasons, many of us don't have that. And even if some have found that, in part in a mixed orientation marriage, there were still probably years in the closet when we yearned to be honest with guy friends and girlfriends in our life about our story and enjoy friendship as ourselves, but couldn't. And instead we're painfully alone. So I think everyone's got perhaps some loneliness, some wounds from being disconnected from younger years that we can tend to here. Some of you might find it helpful to gather with others of similar circumstances who empathize most easily. Hold the pain of loneliness and doubting your worthiness of love before God and each other. Hold that pain before God and each other. Give yourself time and space to feel. I recently read this book. I'm trying to remember the title. Oh, it was called Ambiguous Loss. And it was about lots of, there's things in our lives that are losses, that are pains, and we have ceremonies, we have events, we have processes to help us mourn that engage our bodies and engage our voices in really helpful ways. But then there's some other losses that are more ambiguous, that are more unclear or aren't honored by our society. And that means we get stuck in the grief and we never get out of it, you know? So this mourning can help you get out of it. And some people do a mini funeral for what they feel like they lost in that time of shame. And it sounds like a silly camp thing to write on a piece of paper and set it on fire, in a fire pit. But these kinds of ceremonies, these kinds of processes can be really helpful because they engage our bodies and helps us connect in ways that just doing it intellectually, cerebrally, we can't. Okay, and then the third one is get what you need. Go get the love and family you need. Meet your intimacy needs in healthy ways. So for some of you, a mixed orientation marriage might be part of that solution. But even in a mixed orientation marriage, those individuals need healthy friendship with others in addition to their marriage. So what does healthy, intimate friendships with people of the same sex in particular look like? What can that look like? Well, I think we should look to Scripture. Many of the pillars of our faith depended on committed friendship to sustain their ministry. David and Jonathan, Ruth and Naomi, Jesus and John, Paul and Timothy. Some of these individuals were in opposite-sex marriages. Outside of these deep friendships, some were single, but all found themselves in non-sexual, non-romantic, committed friendships. And I want to call those spiritual friendships. Here's how Ruth speaks about her friendship with Naomi in Ruth chapter 1, verses 16 through 18. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. And then when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her to do the opposite. That's what that looked like for Ruth and Naomi. Okay, what about David and Jonathan's friendship? Here's how Jonathan felt about his friendship with David in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 1 through 4. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. That's pretty meaningful friendship. Here's how David responds when there's the risk of loss of that friendship. In 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 41. David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together. But David wept the most. So we have no reason to believe that any of these women were same-sex attracted. We have no reason to believe that these were secret homoerotic declarations. This kind of spiritual kinship, chosen family, spiritual friendship between people of the same sex has been common through most of recorded history. So, perhaps cultivating friendships like these can help you meet your intimacy needs in healthy ways and come to believe that you are worth loving and push back on those lies of body shame. These spiritual friendships let each other need each other. They gave each other permission to ask of each other's time, energy, etc. They expected to get hurt and committed to forgive. These friendships were enough to sustain those who were single, and they were a hearty supplement for those who are married. If you want to learn more about this idea of spiritual friendship, I encourage you to check out a book by Wesley Hill by that title. I think it's a really powerful, powerful conversation, exploration of it. And for those of you who don't get married, I want to say, or are not currently married, I want to say that you still need lifelong lived-in family too. I'd encourage you to come to my breakout tomorrow afternoon about building intentional community for singles. Because in short, I think everyone is made for lifelong lived-in family, including celibate people. We need just as much human intimacy. Every time Jesus and Paul talk about vocational singleness in Scripture, they seem to recognize in one way or another that celibates still need human intimacy in permanent lived-in family. But how? That's what we're going to explore tomorrow. How do you build those kind of communities for single people? So I'll leave a little teaser there. Want to have another time of discussion amongst y'all and then discussion all together. Here's my questions. Who could you mourn your body shame with? Who could you cultivate spiritual friendship with? What barriers do you anticipate to each? So I'm going to give you guys another 6 or 7 minutes to think about these privately or chat with someone next to you, and then we'll have another big conversation as a group. Okay, go. Unresolved trauma wounds believe that we are still stuck in the most scary moment of our trauma and aims to protect us from getting hurt. And anytime that something involves risk, those unresolved trauma wounds are more likely to stand up really loud and try to protect us. But often that means putting up barriers and walls. And developing these kinds of friendships with people are scary. They involve taking risks. So these are going to be places where those unresolved trauma wounds are going to stand up and think you need its protection from getting hurt. And so, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. We'll kind of soft break here. I'll stick around for a little bit more group Q&A and then more private conversation. But thank you guys so much for coming.